Pests and disease organisms are terrifying. I just recently watched a movie called Space Master X7, and its greatest feature was that Mo Howard of the Three Stooges appears as a taxi driver in a serious role. It was after the Stooges had been canceled by Columbia, so he was looking for, other gigs. Anyway, he's great. But it also has an alien fungus, which can destroy people. The movie The First Man in Space also has a guy comes back with a disease. Outer space plagues are in a lot of science fiction films. Probably the best is the Andromeda strain. Now, I've read a lot of really interesting books about parasites and disease, which explain why diseases stay malignant and lethal over time. Now, you've heard friends, maybe you've even said it, say, well, diseases evolved to become milder because if you kill the host, it's bad for the disease. But this is not always true. I wish it was, but there's many exceptions to the rule. One reason is that more aggressive, more malevolent infections are easier to transmit. For instance, there are 5 different strains of malaria. One of them is really malignant and leads to pretty swift death. The other strains are milder. They can last for years. So why is there a malignant strain? It's simple. The malignant strain keeps a high parasite load in the blood all the time. So any mosquito that bites you is going to get infected, and it keeps spreading effectively. A mosquito who bites someone with a mild strain doesn't always get a dose of the parasite, especially during the times of remission. There was a parallel situation with the HIV virus. One of the strains of AIDS was super aggressive, and its victims were really infectious. Another strain was milder, but the victim didn't always pass it on. I don't know what the current status of the HIV strains is, but at the time, both those evolutionary paths were useful for the HIV virus, and of course, bad for us, but, its goal isn't to help us. But there's another reason, and here's the interesting reason, that diseases sometimes stay deadly. And this is a recent theory that's come out that I find very convincing, and it's based on zoonoses. These are diseases that cross between animal species. You see, diseases are part of the host's ecology. Imagine that you are a vervet monkey, and you're infected with a virus. Now, in vervet monkeys, this virus isn't too bad. It gives you a mild cough, maybe a rash you have to scratch. You like being groomed more by the monkeys. You continue your monkey shines, not too much trouble. Now, imagine that your virus spreads. It crosses over from you to another similar primate. Now, when a disease jumps to a new species, of course, that disease is initially really lethal because the host doesn't have defenses against it. In the same way that when measles went from Europeans to Native Americans, the Native Americans were decimated. We were even the same species. Turns out measles is actually a pretty deadly disease, except Europeans have all grown kind of resistant to it. Your vervet monkey disease is skipping to another species, and now it's deadly. So the chimps or the humans or the baboons or whatever it's spread to start dying, okay? Now, going back to you as the vervet monkey, the fact that this virus is lethal to those other similar primates benefits you. How? Well, chimps sometimes kill and eat vervet monkeys. So do humans. Baboons compete for food and shelter. But when your disease, when they get too near to you, and some of those baboons, chimps, and humans are being killed off, you're better off, right? In this way, your virus actually enhances your ecology, and it does so naturally. It doesn't have to evolve, just as a natural result. And the final thing is, because you're doing better as a species, because the competing guys are being hit by the virus, there's more vervet monkeys for the virus to affect. Therefore, this is like evolutionary good for the virus and for you, so it makes sense for the vervet monkey virus to evolve to be even more dangerous when it jumps species. So vervet monkeys become more and more dominant. It may or may not become less dangerous in the vervets, because maybe if it's more dangerous than you can spread it more easily, but the point is, overall, you're better off if there's more vervets. So the idea of disease used as an ecological weapon kept swimming around in my head. I thought, what if an intelligent alien species used disease this way, to rid itself of competitors? It would have evolved as a creature which hosted pockets of disease for a wide variety of possible competitors. Over time, this disease could become the main weapon of the species. Instead of size, strength, or speed, it would use sickness. Other species would have to simply try to avoid these things or die out. It would research and ferret out diseases to affect other unrelated organisms. Of course, the name aliens themselves, which I named Nomians, would be a host for the diseases. As an intelligent species, presumably they'd rig matters so the diseases they carry didn't hurt them. For example, imagine that we humans were plagued by elm trees. I know it's a stretch, but imagine it. So we made ourselves a host for Dutch elm disease, a sickness that kills elm trees. It wouldn't affect us at all because we can't catch Dutch elm disease, but everywhere we went, elms would be endangered. Now, obviously, every other civilization would hate such a species, so they'd be loathsome. They carry disease, they spread disease. It's their main means of interacting with other civilizations. Now, a big advantage of disease as a weapon is that it's really cheap to apply. A nuclear bomb requires a technologically sophisticated device that can cost millions of dollars, plus a delivery system. Even poison gas requires a large supply of the deadly elixir. But disease, you can send that in an envelope or scatter it from an airplane. The notorious Unit 731 of the Imperial Japanese Army perfected a means of spreading the Black Death with just mortar shells. Those are like 50 cents each. Even better, from the user's point of view, disease doesn't get weaker over time. Like bombs and gas, as the gas spreads, it gets thinner. As you finish with your bombs, it ends. But disease gets stronger. And if your first attempt at infecting people fails, hey, try again. It's so nasty that even Richard Nixon saw the threat. In 1969, he banned all use of biological weapons by the USA, even if someone else used them on us first. I also created a Nomian supership, which is, again, based on disease organisms. It grows in strength over time, in the same way that disease organisms learn to bypass their host defenses. Of course, anyone impacted by the Nomian bioweapons would be highly advanced spacefaring species who might be expected to find countermeasures. But the Nomians are also inventing new and more deadly attacks, and they'd always have the edge. They would be a really terrifying enemy and tough to beat. Plus, they would make territory unusable to the defenders. For example, the Soviet Union claimed to have banned bioweapons when Richard Nixon did, or shortly afterwards, but in 1979, it was pretty obvious they hadn't because they released, I think by accident, weaponized anthrax in Sverdlovsk. That killed a lot of people and left behind a stretch of road still marked with signs saying, "Do not stop here. If you step off the road, could be anthrax." So this is one alien I thought about that I really hope would rather not be real, but the thought behind it seems pretty compelling. At least I hope this kind of alien won't be our first contact. If you like my stories and my tales and my speculations, subscribe, sign up for notifications, buy items like this one here. Thanks.